Welcome to episode 90 in our series on Duties of the Heart by Rabbi Bachya Ibn Pakuda, and we are about to enter the Gate of Abstinence, which is section 9 of 10 in this series, this kind of ladder that we find Rabbi Bahya leading us up in the course of learning how to be a true servant of God. And I say that because I'm trying to remind ourselves that what this book is all about, and in particular the value of this gate of abstinence. We've been this is our 90th episode, so it's been a long haul through this book. And we must remind ourselves of the importance of really the true essence of this book. This book is not just for enjoyable reading. This book is a guidebook to being like a foot soldier of God, to be working for God, to be in the army of God, so to speak, to be like an elite unit that serves God. So why is this important? This is important because in the last episode, the last gate, the gate dealing with self-accounting, it was almost like the third chapter was like a mini, a kitzah, Chovot HaLevavot. And I think it led us up beautifully to this concept of the abstinence, of being disciplined. Now, why is this important? And why am I making such a lengthy introduction to this chapter, to this gate? It's because this idea of abstinence is an integral part of the development and the kind of evolution of this servant of God, the gate he must go through in order to serve God. Once, as Rabbi Bachya has indicated several times throughout the book, that if you do this and if you do that and if you follow what I say, you will be chosen as a servant of God amongst many, but at a very important position. To be a servant of God. It means you have responsibilities. It means your life changes. As Rabbi Bahya has indicated many times, this is something you should grab at the chance. Don't waste your chance. He said many a time, this is only for a kind of chosen elite that God chooses to serve Him. Now, but you can put yourself in the position to be chosen, and that's the important thing. But if you are chosen, you must realize that your life changes, and a lot of the things you did earlier in your life are now strictly off limits. Why? Because Hashem is now resting upon you, within you, and therefore you can't make conditions in any way abrasive towards God. So any vices of any types have to be completely erased from your personality, from your psyche, and from your body. And you have to now become almost like your body is a temple. This is very important, extremely important. And it's a kind of immutable law of God's that unless you get in line and you understand your mission and your responsibilities towards being a vessel of God. If the Shekhinah rests on you, you have now to keep it pure and holy. You have to keep yourself pure and holy. Therefore, if you used to perhaps drink, you must limit that to the bare minimum. Anything else that would be a kind of wouldn't have a purifying effect on you, you must leave it behind. This is very, very important. And when I say immutable, unless you get yourself into gear, you will not progress further, and you will be. God will tell you, that He will not let you fail. In other words, you will not progress further unless you fall into line and you understand your responsibilities. And it's not going to change that he's going to just leave. God is going to leave you. God is going to stay with you because he understands your potential. He knows your potential, and he will stay there until you change, because he knows that's the best path for you, and he wants you to be a servant. And it's an immutable, universal law that you have to keep yourself holy. So this is the essence of the Gate of Abstinence, is this idea that you have to limit certain things in your life to the bare minimum in order to keep yourself holy. Kadoshim Tihiyu. And so let's start. We're going to start with an opening section and then do chapter 1 in this episode. So section 9, the Gate of Abstinence, and it describes it as abstaining from this world, and to the extent to which this is advisable for us. So Rabbi Bahya begins, having discussed in the preceding gate the gate of obligation of self-accounting, and since abstaining from the world is one of the aspects contemplated in such accounting, I think it proper to follow with an explanation of the different kinds of abstinence and the special character of the kind obligatory for the adherence to the Torah. For such abstinence is vital to the religion and to the world, and is a source of tranquility for soul and body in both worlds. So he's going to describe now the contents of the 7 chapters of the Gate of Abstinence. So he continues. It is my task to explain the following 7 aspects of abstinence. Number 1. What is general abstinence, and why do people need it? Number 2, definitions of special abstinence and why it is necessary for the adherence to the Torah. Number 3, into how many classes are those who withdraw in abstinence divided? Number 4, an elaboration of the conditions of abstinence. And number 5, forms of abstinence that are in accord with our Torah. Number 6, mention of abstinence in the Torah and the books of the prophets. And number 7, the difference between our ancients and forefathers on the one hand and ourselves on the other in regard to it. So, we're going to move on to chapter 1 now. And that's the question 1. What is the essence of general abstinence, and why do people need it? So Rabbi Bachya begins. I say in response that abstinence is a term with many connotations. The term is a well-known expression, but its real meaning is hidden and obscure. When the clay is removed and the seal broken, its hidden meaning is revealed and its purpose becomes apparent. The plain meaning of abstinence is bridling selfish desire and voluntarily refraining on account of some cause that prescribes this from something that is in your power and that you have the opportunity to do so. It has been said that one who abstains is one who has the power and does not use it. The cause that prescribes the bridling of selfish desire can be divided into 2 parts. One part applies generally to all people and many other living creatures. The other is special to people who are adherents to the Torah. General abstinence is practiced to promote the health of our bodies and improve our welfare. Some examples are the regulations of the kings in governing the nations, the regimen prescribed by physicians for the healthy as well as for the sick, and the self-control exerted by every intelligent person in restraining his desire in regard to food and drink, sexual relations, clothing, speech, and other activities and pleasure. Special abstinence is the regimen prescribed by the Torah and the intellect for the welfare of our souls in the next world, as I will explain later with God's help. So Rabbi Bahya is telling us here that we have to have some sort of discipline and control in our lives. We know that we can do anything we want. God has given us freedom of choice and freedom of will. It doesn't mean that we should do everything, although perhaps God allows us to do everything. We have to find that golden mean, that line, the correct balance between doing and not doing, even though we have the power to use it, to use this freedom of choice. We have to be intelligent about it, and we have to look at us and he mentions not being selfish. We mustn't be selfish, because now we are sharing our reality with God directly, sometimes not directly, perhaps through another medium, but we are sharing now our soul, as Rambam mentioned. He tells of the prophet or the enlightened person, where his soul is intermingled with something called Ishim, which is the lowest form of angel on this ladder from God, that communicates with man and prophets. So we have to realize that our brains and our minds are the conduit for these intelligences and sources of instruction. And so we must not, to be very, very frank, we have to keep our brain from damage. In other words, you have to restrict to the maximum any damage that can be done to your mind and your body through the brain and through our physical beings. And Rabbi Bahya continues with the need for general abstinence. So he continues. The multidimensional need for general abstinence is a result of what we discussed in the third gate of this book. The fact that the Creator's purpose in creating the human species was to discipline the soul and try it in this world, so that it would be purified and attain the level of the holy angels. As it says, if you walk in my ways and keep my service, I will let you walk amongst those who stand here. That's from Zechariah 3 verse 7. Thus, divine wisdom dictated that souls be tested by union with earthly bodies that have the capacity for growth and increase through foods suited to them. The Creator, may he be exalted, fused to the human soul an appetitive faculty by which, as long as the two were joined together, the soul would yearn for the sustenance provided for it in this world, so that it would continue to exist and flourish. He also implanted in human beings another faculty, which makes them long for sexual relations, so that they would propagate the species in this world. The Creator, may he be exalted, gave man as his reward for these functions pleasure in them. He appointed instinct to exert influence over him, to urge him to food, drink, sexual relations, and all pleasure and leisure upon which his physical being depends. As it says, and he quotes from Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11, he has also set the world in their hearts. When, however, instinct overpowered the intellect, and the soul was drawn to the former, man's soul inclined to excesses that bring about the deterioration of his condition and the destruction of his body. As a result, he came to need the quality of abstinence from pleasure and leisure, so as to achieve a proper balance in his condition and the proper ordering of his affairs in this world by taking only the necessary minimum. In doing so, he would be worthy of praise. As it says, good is the man who is generous and lends, who conducts his affairs with judgment. That's from Psalms 112, verse 5. So, if I can bring a great example from a current philosopher who describes the battle between the body and the mind, and how you can give it an analogy. He described it as follows. It's a horse and its rider. The rider being the mind or the brain, and the horse is the heart. So you must make a journey together. There is no escape. You cannot get off the horse. You are stuck with the horse. But as a rider of the horse, you must not constrict the horse. You mustn't dig your heels into its side. You must not pull its reins too hard, because you feel that you have to overpower it. You shouldn't have to overpower your natural strengths and emotions and desires, but you should bridle them, you should ride upon them and keep them in check. And at the same time, you cannot let the horse do what it wants. You can't let your heart overwhelm your brain, because it'll speed up and ride wherever it wants, wherever it feels like it wants to go, and you'll have no control of it. The trick is to find a balance, to be a wise rider of the horse. This is very important. So that's a very good example of this balance that he's describing here, the proper balance that you must find. And Rabbi Bahya continues, "Now, since it is necessary for man to practice general abstinence, as this is vital to him in this world, that he take from it only what is needed, it follows that there have to be in this world complete ascetics who separate and detach themselves from worldly pursuits, so that all kinds of people may learn abstinence from them, each kind according to its needs and in accordance with its conduct and character. It would not be good for the world if all people were to practice asceticism like these ascetics, for this would lead to a breakdown in the building of society and to the end of procreation. As Scripture has said in Yeshayahu 45:18, he did not create it to be an empty void, he formed it to be inhabited. Abstinence is just one of the pillars of the world. People need it, just as they need the other disciplines and trades. Now, in each of these disciplines and trades, there are people who are the specialists. In this way, all others may benefit from them, each group of people taking from them according to its needs and as befits it. It would not be good for the world if everyone specialized in the same discipline or trade, for the perfection of the world order is in all of them together. As the wise one, King Solomon, said, he has made everything right in its time. That's from Ecclesiastes 3 verse 11. And also from Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1, there is a time for everything, a moment for all concerns under the heavens. The preceding discussion clarifies the meaning of general abstinence and the need people have for it, namely as a means to the well-ordering of their affairs in this world. So fascinating first chapter there, and first answer to the first question. And in the next episode, we're going to discuss what defines special abstinence and why is it necessary for the adherence to the Torah. So I look forward to going through that next episode.